All right, so as promised, I'm going to go through some of these questions real quick just to make sure we understand the logic of them. Question number 1, this says focus on Morocco only. If Morocco produces 44 limes, how many asparagus can produce at a maximum? And I've got the answers here pulled up, and so this is kind of redundant, but I thought it might be useful just to go through them so you guys can see how I arrived at the solution. So what I need to do is I need to figure out what is the opportunity cost of producing 44 limes. Okay, that's going to kind of be my starting point for this question. To do that, before I can address that question, I got to figure out what is the opportunity cost of 1 lime. All right, and the way we have done this in the past, the way that works for me, is I'm going to take the maximum values and set these equal to each other. Okay, so I'm taking these maximum values of each good that could be produced and setting them equal to each other. And what this tells me is the opportunity cost of producing 52 limes is 192 asparagus. So to solve for 1 lime, I'm going to divide through by 52. And what this comes to here is that the opportunity cost of 1 lime is 3.6923076.9. Okay, and I'm not going to round this because I'm going to do more math with it. So if the opportunity cost of 1 lime is 3.6923076.9 asparagus, then I need to just multiply that times 44 to determine the opportunity cost of 44 limes. And what I get if I do that is 162.461538 asparagus. All right, so the opportunity cost of 44 limes is that many asparagus. Now, the mistake the students make is to think that that right there is the answer, but that is not the answer, okay? That is telling you what they lose. So if they produce 44 limes, what that tells you is they lose this many asparagus. So to determine how many asparagus they can produce at a maximum, I need to take the maximum amount of asparagus they can produce totally, subtract off how much they lose in this example, and that is where I get the answer of 29.54. Okay, so again, what we've done here is we solved for the opportunity cost of 44 limes. That tells us how much they lose, so I need to figure out the maximum limes they can produce totally, subtract off what they would lose, and that tells me how many asparagus they could produce for this question. Question number 2, I just need to solve for the opportunity cost and figure out the comparative advantage, okay? So we already know that for Morocco, the opportunity cost of 1 lime is 3.6923076.9 asparagus. I need to do the exact same thing for Venezuela. Okay, and what I should get is that the opportunity cost of 1 lime is 3.62711.864 asparagus. And I hope that at this point, all of you can get to that point in this question. All right, so solving for opportunity cost should be something that should be easy at this point. Now, you got to make sure you don't make a common mistake here because, you know, the mistake I see from students is they look at these numbers and they say, which one is higher? Venezuela has a higher number, so they must be better at producing limes in terms of comparative advantage. But keep in mind that these are costs, okay? So when we're dealing with costs, what we're saying is when Morocco produces a lime, they give up this many asparagus. When Venezuela produces a lime, they give up this many asparagus. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is B, Venezuela, for number 2, because they give up less when they produce a lime. Remember, this is a cost, so it costs them less. Okay? All right, moving ahead here. Question number 3, this is just a conceptual question. The inflation rate is -2%. What that means is if prices are going down 2% between 2 years, that's what that -2% inflation would mean. Think about this. If everything is getting cheaper, what that means is every dollar is worth more. This $20 bill right here, if everything's getting cheaper, this $20 bill is becoming more powerful. So when prices go down 2%, what that tells you is the value of a dollar goes up 2% between whatever 2 years we're dealing with in this question. So the correct answer to that one is B. Moving along here. I give you a set of goods here, and I ask you to solve for CPI and inflation. So real quick, just to make sure we understand where this is coming from. When we're dealing with CPI, we're dealing with a set number of quantities. 150 strawberries, 5 concert tickets, and 200 sodas. That's telling you, if you take a completely average household, what they would be buying in a year. In the US, in any other country, in reality, this is tons and tons of goods, right? Thousands and thousands of goods. But for our specific case in this class, we're not going to deal with thousands of goods. Instead, I'm just going to give you a few different goods. So imagine households on average bought 150 strawberries, 5 concert tickets, and 200 sodas. And imagine they did that every single year. Then take the prices that we actually know in each of those years, and we can figure out how much it costs to buy a basket. So for example, in 2014, each strawberry is $3.50. Average household buys 150. So 3.5 times 150, that would tell you how much they're paying for strawberries. And you do that for every single good, you would see that $960, this is how much it costs to buy the basket in 2014. I'm sorry for my handwriting. It's kind of hard to write this while I've got the camera propped up. All right, so we do that for all 4 of these years, and that's where we get these basket prices. Next, I went ahead and solved for the CPI for every single year. CPI is solved by taking the basket price in the year that you're solving for, the year of interest, and dividing it by the basket price in the base year, and taking all of that and multiplying it times 100. So in 2014, the year we're solving for, 2014, is the same as the base year. So that's why we get a CPI of 100. All right, and you can see how we solve for the rest of these here. Inflation in a given year, such as 2015, is the CPI in 2015 minus the CPI the year before, divided by the CPI the year before times 100, okay? And that's how we arrive at all these answers. You know, I don't see any reason to go through all of these again. I've solved for them here. Make sure that you can replicate these answers. Make sure you understand the logic of what you're trying to accomplish. Question number 7 is based on the same content here, okay? So if we're trying to compare dollar values through time, this question is asking me, how much would I need to earn in 2017 to have the same real salary as I did in 2015, okay? And so the formula I use is I'm trying to figure out how much I would need in 2017. So that's going to go on the left-hand side of the equation. On the right-hand side of the equation is the amount that I know, which is the amount in 2015. I multiply that times the CPI in 2017 divided by the CPI in 2015, okay? And you just got to memorize that formula. It's just really just as simple as that, all right? You need to memorize that formula there. And so that's what I did here, and here's my answer, 90,000 to 11.33. So what that tells you is somebody earning 71,000 in 2015 and somebody earning 90,211 in 2017 would have the same buying power in terms of their income. So although their salaries would be very different, these amounts have the same buying power once you consider inflation, okay? Question number 8. In the United States, a cyclical unemployment rate of 14% would mean that the actual unemployment rate is what? Okay, you need to remember that the formula here, the cyclical unemployment rate, is equal to the actual unemployment rate minus the natural unemployment rate. I think people just got a little careless on this one, okay? So for this question, we know the cyclical unemployment rate is 14%. We know the natural unemployment rate here is 4.5%. So what we don't know, the X we are solving for here, is the actual unemployment rate. And so that has to be 18.5%. And so what that means is the cyclical unemployment rate of 14% means that 14% of people are unemployed just because the economy is bad. But there's also a 4.5% group of people that are naturally unemployed. So when you add those together, that is where you get that 18.5% total unemployment. Question number 9. Let's just define these three terms just to make sure we understand, okay? Cyclically unemployed, this means you're unemployed due to a bad economy, all right? Cyclically unemployed means you're unemployed just because the economy is bad. So let's say that Georgia College lays me off and their reason is because of budget cuts, all right? In that case, the budget cuts, probably because of COVID and because the economy is really bad, means that I will lose my job. That is an example of cyclical unemployment. It doesn't have anything to do with my skills. It doesn't have anything to do with me specifically. It's just when the economy is bad, people get laid off. On the other hand, you could be naturally unemployed. Natural unemployment is characterized by these two events. Frictional unemployment means you're unemployed because of changing market conditions, but your skills are still useful, okay? Frictional means your skills are still useful. So let's say that Georgia College shuts down not because of a bad economy, but let's say Georgia College shuts down because people just decide they don't want to go to college anymore. We have kind of this change in mentality in the U.S. So if I become unemployed because of Georgia College shutting down, I can still get a job as an economist elsewhere. So in that case, I would be frictionally unemployed because my skills are still useful. I don't need to go get retrained. I just need to apply for new jobs. On the other hand, imagine structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is still caused by natural market conditions changing. So for example, let's say that economists are now useless. Let's say that machine learning, computing technology becomes more valuable than economists. We don't need economists anymore. In that case, I'd become unemployed because of changing market conditions. But in this case, I need new skills. My skills are not useful. So in this case, I'm going to need to go back, get new training, learn a new trade, and my skills will be useless, okay, unless I go out and get trained. So in this case, Ada has been working as an engineer for a large carpeting firm in Macon. However, due to poor management at the carpeting firm, not due to a bad economy, not because Ada's skills are useless or anything, just because of poor management, she was laid off. In this case, she is frictionally unemployed, okay? Her skills are still useful, right? She's still an engineer. Engineers are still needed. It's just that her specific carpeting firm was poorly managed. So all she's got to do is go out and apply for new jobs. This is called frictional unemployment. And to be clear, this kind of thing, this is like good economy or good unemployment in a way. It's not good for Ada, right? It's not good that she's losing her job. But imagine if these poorly managed firms didn't shut down. That'd be terrible. It'd be terrible for the economy if these crappy firms stayed open. So that's why we call it natural unemployment. It is natural that some jobs will become, filled with unemployment because Ada, in this case, is laid off due to poor management. She'll still be able to get another job, but she's frictionally unemployed for the time being. Number 10, Shane has been looking for a job for months. However, he believes the economy is so poor that there's no chance of finding one, so he gives up on looking for a job. What will happen? All right, in this case, the unemployment rate will actually go down. And this goes to show why the unemployment rate is not always a great predictor or indication of how the economy is doing. When Shane goes from looking for a job to giving up, at the beginning, he's unemployed. Okay? At the beginning here, he's unemployed. He's been looking for a job. However, when he gives up looking for a job, he is no longer unemployed. He's not even in the labor force anymore. So he is no longer unemployed. So when he goes from being unemployed to not unemployed, the unemployment rate drops, right? You're losing an unemployed person. Even though it looks like the economy is crappy, the unemployment rate will go down. Number 11, same starting place for this question. In this case, we're trying to figure out what happens to the labor force participation rate. To begin with, when he's looking for a job, he is in the labor force, right? Unemployed people are counted in the labor force. They are trying to work, so we put them in the labor force. But after he gives up, he is no longer in the labor force. So the labor force participation rate will go down, decrease. And then finally, question number 12, what would be the most likely sign of a worsening economy? That would be when the unemployment rate drops and also the labor force participation rate drops. Okay? I'm sorry. That would be when the unemployment rate goes up and the labor force participation rate goes down. Okay, so think about what this means. This means fewer people looking for a job. Fewer are trying to work. So fewer are either working or trying to work. Unemployment rate going up means that a lower percent of the labor force have a job. So if you are simultaneously losing people trying to work and the labor force has fewer people employed, that is clear indication of a bad economy, okay? And that's why it's answer to number. That's why the answer is A. On the contrary, imagine if you saw the unemployment rate was going up and the labor force participation rate was going up. This is unclear of whether this is good or bad. Normally, the unemployment rate going up, we would think of that as a bad thing. People are not finding a job. But if the labor force participation rate goes up, normally we would think of that as a good thing. More people are trying to work. And when more people are trying to work, that usually means they're optimistic about their chances to find a job. So since we can't tell which of these is more important, we don't really know what's happening to the labor market overall, okay? So for the specific question on the quiz here, it's A, and I just wanted to point this out just so we recognize that sometimes you get misleading signals. All right, there we go. There's quiz 3. I hope that helped.